Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 93rd episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Get a premium membership. You get all of my Bruins and NHL writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also file for the Boston Sports Journal. Go to www.bostonsportsjournal.com and check out all my Bruins writing there. With me today, longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, let everybody know where they can find your work, my friend.
Well, thanks for reminding me. I got a column to write for Sunday on bostonhockeynow.com.
There you go.
It's been that kind of a week. It's just hard to get adjusted to it being over. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I have a rink wrap blog, rinkwrapmc.com, but I always link it on X, so you can get me there, Facebook, that sort of thing. And I make weekly appearances on the Pete Shepard Show, usually Tuesday mornings.
There you go, Mick with Pete the Meat. I love it. Let's also thank our sponsors real quick. Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's fun and pretty simple. You download the Prize Picks app and you use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Let's also thank the Game Time app. This is where you can buy your NBA playoff tickets if you want to go watch the Celtics, if somehow the Pacers can make it back to Boston. I don't even know if that's going to happen at this point. Or you can try to get maybe NBA final tickets at this point, because it looks like the Celtics are headed there, no problem at all. But either way, the Game Time app is fantastic. Last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing. You pick out any specific game or matchup that you love to attend. You browse through the Game Time app and talk about and get a good deal you see for these games. Use the app features listed and customize your spot and the supplemental as inspiration. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy NBA playoff tickets for every kind of event in your area. Views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, all that stuff. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create the account at the Game Time app and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Mick, I have not talked to you since the season, I believe, has ended. So just we did a podcast a few days ago with Dupes and Steve Conroy and got their thoughts kind of on the end of the season. And I have not done a podcast since we had the end of season press conference with the Bruins brass. So just your thoughts about the end of the season, the postseason for the Bruins, sort of what, your takeaway from the two rounds and how it ended for them, and what you thought about the end of season presser with Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, Charlie Jacobs, and Jim Montgomery.
I kind of wish I could wrap that magic rope around Don Sweeney and not have him worry about what Cam hears him say or what Charlie hears him say, and just say, come on, you guys overachieved. What you did, and I told him afterwards when it broke up, I just went over and shook hands with him and just said, well, you did this freaking unbelievable, given what you were up against, what you lost, what you had to replace, your limitations were in doing it. So for them to have the season they had and not be playing all year, to be on the bubble and hope for the best, and to be flirting with the President's Trophy, be in the divisional lead most of the season, that to me, and you extend your unlikely legacy of torture on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you live to play another round, and you win Game 5 down there, which redefined it from a short series into a long, dramatic one. And it was hard fought. It was one goal. It went to the wire. They upset they didn't get to Game 7 because they felt like they should have, they could have. I feel like they could have. I don't feel like they should have. I feel like they were just, you leave that much on your goalie and you play that much of the game in your own end, you don't deserve to win a playoff series. You shouldn't be the team that goes out of that playoff series.
No.
They weren't the team that was making pushes. They were the team that was getting pushed. So for me, yeah, you can isolate things with hockey coach mind and say we had 4 breakaways in the second period of game 6. But you know something? When you finally get a chance, because the only thing you got in your game is a counterattack, then it gets a little tight holding those sticks.
Yeah.
So for me, that was all part of it. It wasn't like, oh, if only, I'm not thinking that way about this season. I'm thinking, wow, that was amazing. Good for them.
Yeah, and to a degree, they have to say that, right? Or they have to sort of express that sentiment, like the expectation is to win the cup, and we're disappointed about, that we're not still playing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm disappointed they didn't push a game 7, like whatever. But like, I didn't also, it's telling when you don't get that vibe of them being bitterly disappointed during that press conference. There was none, no fire and brimstone, no like strong emotion, no heads are going to roll. There weren't a lot of tough questions either. You know what I mean? This was a very, I think everybody was on the same page, understanding that they overachieved to a degree, that this was a transitional year, and that really a lot of it was about looking at this summer and the salary cap space and the players they may be able to bring in and sort of the future, and sort of using this as a building block, the step of winning a playoff round and getting to the second round, and giving Florida a bit of a push to a game 6, even though they were clearly the inferior team in that series. That they got it to that point, I think, was some minor victory in and of itself, and that showed some will on their part that they could get it that far, when they really struggled after game 1, I thought, for long portions of that series, just to have the puck in the offensive zone, break it out, all that stuff. So I think that, yeah, I was on board with what you're saying, and I got the same sort of gist from it. Like, they had to say some of the perfunctory things, and it doesn't stop the fans from being angry, right? There's fans that are pissed off, want changes, want people fired, want all this craziness, when it makes no sense really in this situation. And that sort of like anger, or that like, wish for upheaval, just doesn't jive with what we saw on the ice, with what the team was made out of, like what the whole circumstances of this year were. And I think it's always important to sort of keep that in mind. And it's I think, incumbent on us sometimes in the media to make sure that the expectations are where they should be for the fans, or we're trying to express as much as we can. Like, if you are like on a crazy train thinking everybody in management and coaching should be fired after the season with the Bruins because they've gone, 1-0 a few years in a row, or, haven't gotten past the second round since 2019, that just doesn't compute with what we're seeing, with what they're building, with what they've continued to be able to do, even though they've had massive losses of Hall of Fame players that have retired and left in the last 5 years. But they've continued to, compete, be one of the best teams in the league, and sort of turn over the roster and get it sort of, pointed for the next 10 years now. And now, like, obviously, it's going to get serious and it's going to get real for Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, Jim Montgomery, like the Bruins brass, the scouting staff, like everybody this summer, because they have to hit some home runs. They have to hit some doubles off the wall. They have to like really
have extra base hits. You're absolutely right.
They have to really nail all of these signings that they're going to have, and these summer acquisitions they're going to have, and just using the salary cap space that they have right now. They can't have David Backes style like swings and mostly misses, or Matt Bolesky, or like some of the things that sometimes Don Sweeney, when he's gone big game free agent hunting, has not come up with the right signing, and has,
Great for Rick Nash.
Yeah, same thing. But like that one, I understood. That's like, injuries are another, like, whatever. I thought that was the right move. I still do. But bottom line is, though, like, as much as it wasn't a big deal, I think, and there wasn't a lot of like hue and cry about them going out in the second round and losing to a better team in Florida, who, by the way, did exactly what they did to the Bruins in the Tampa Bay Lightning in game 1 against the New York Rangers.
Uniforms of blue and red.
Yeah, did the same thing to the Rangers as they did to the other two teams, which I think continues to sort of, change your perspective too of what happened in the second round with the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. But all that being said, I think as sort of modest and as sort of like quiet and as sort of peaceful to a degree, or I don't know what you want to like controversy free as the end of season press conference was, and as sort of the ending of the Bruins season was this time around. It was sort of expected. The ante is being raised and the expectations are being raised, and I think everything is going to be heightened from here on out, where it's going to start getting serious. And it, you know, calling for people's jobs or having serious expectations and then ramifications if those expectations aren't met. That's going to start this summer through next year. Like it's going to get raised next year to a degree where like they're going to need there needs to be more from the Bruins, and it's fair to start asking for more from everybody across the board in the organization, given where they are right now. Why don't you go and get the Prize Picks app? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll right in. You can get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's upcoming playoffs, during the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. As I mentioned, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and anything else today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It has something for every sports fan, from basketball to hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. How cool is that? You're going to want to get involved right now. David Pastrnak, you can do goals, you can do shots, maybe you can do turnovers because sometimes he has a lot of those in the game as well. You just pick more or less than. It's fun and pretty simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Yeah, I'm playing really nice right now, and not because I don't mean it. I just think what they accomplished was incredible.
Yeah.
Now we're here. Now
sure.
we're here. We had the final act at Legends the other day of the 23-24 season. From henceforth, everything is about 24-25, and you know, my attitude is changing.
Yeah, the ante is up big time.
Because I'm not going to hold Don Sweeney's feet to the fire if he doesn't win a competitive bidding war for the centerman everybody wants. I do think that they're going to wind up having to go and get a player like that. What'll bother me a lot more with, what is it, 22 million? Or is that projected if you trade Allmark? And
if Allmark, I think it's closer to 24, 25.
Okay, so
I think it's around 20.
Got some serious space here.
Yeah.
To either get a couple of huge pieces or a few really good ones, or 4 or 5 players that you identify as a fit, and take another step forward and redefining your hockey team for the future around the core that you have, or add to the core, redefine that even. So my issue is, are you going to use this opportunity to trend your roster toward winning inside ice in the playoffs, winning 50-50 pucks on the walls, especially where your wingers are stationed for the help that breakout? Are you going to win those pucks? Are you going to always be at a disadvantage because you decided instead that some guy who scored 27 goals 2 years ago is going to give you secondary scoring, but you're not going to change the culture of your team? If they go and do that, then I am going to go from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde in a hurry, because to me, this is the golden opportunity, and I can't imagine how many more times the Bruins need to lose a playoff series to a more physical team than they in order to come to the conclusion that, yeah, we'd like to score a few more goals. Yeah, I'd like to see us win a few more 50-50s. Yeah, it's enough. It's got to change. This is your opportunity to change your team and play with the big boys in the playoffs and have that not be an issue. And if they can't land the big fish in the competitive market, I understand that. But you have opportunities here to train your team, and that's what they have to do, or else I will then become very critical.
Yeah, and you should. I mean, and it's not just winning 50-50 puck battles. It like with it, and sort of inside ice, like physicality, size, strength. It's speed. It's playing hard. It's like just going in there and playing through players instead of, being tentative about going in there or not going in there at all. There's a whole list of things. Like it would be one thing if Florida was just more physical than the Bruins, but they were faster, more talented, and more physical. Like they were all of those
I
things.
can live with some of that because they are more actualized. 2 years ago, President's Trophy. Last year, they made a bunch of changes to their team, and it took them a while to gel. And now they've done the necessary tweaks. They knew they weren't going to keep Gudas in the free agent market, but they wound up making a guy like Ekman Larson work out, who's a completely different widget. And so they've been able to, and have also farmed up.
Even he played with a harder edge with Florida than I ever remember him playing before that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He bought in.
He
has all of this highway miles, and so he's still got a lot left.
Yep.
And so for him to come in and do what he's done with them, and then they farmed up a kid like Stenlund. So they had an internal solution at fourth line center. Big, strong kid, makes smart plays out there in his role. He's excellent. And Lundell as a third line center, his profile has risen to a point that they're probably not going to be able to keep him going forward because he's too good for where he is. Yeah. His team is just outstanding. They've got everything. And they look to me like they got not just swagger, not just attitude. They got the talent, the bodies, the experience, the mixture. The only thing they haven't done is win it. And like every other team in the expansion era, 1967 and forward, who's beaten the Bruins 2 years in a row in the playoffs, has won the Stanley Cup. They're on the clock. So I think that they really look to me, all season long, have felt like this is the team that should be wearing the ball caps when this is over. And I do feel like we have 4 legitimate semifinalists.
Yeah.
The conference finals. I don't feel like there's a Cinderella among them. I feel like all these teams are eligible to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think there's a team that doesn't belong in this situation. The right 4 are there in my mind.
No, I agree, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Florida dusts the Rangers in like 5 games, like after we saw in game 1,
Yeah, the Rangers. Well, I'm really looking forward to game 2 because if there's an answer, it has to be in this game.
Yes.
It has to be. You don't lose 2 at home to them and go down there and survive this series.
Yep.
You just so it's a must win in my mind, a non-mathematical must win for the Rangers. So what are they going to have? What are they going to do? What are they going to have? What are they going to bring? I thought Dallas would be a more physical team against Edmonton. They scored an early knockdown hit in the game. And after that, Edmonton was a more physical team all the way through the game. That blew my mind because I really was impressed by Dallas in the prior rounds. But I think the opponent had something to do with that. I don't think the Avalanche have been the same team since Landeskog went out of the lineup. Kadri went out of the lineup.
Yep.
Eric Johnson went out of the lineup. I don't feel like they've been the same team. And I feel like they need to retool in order to get back to where they think they should be.
Yeah, I just think at this point, too, McDavid smells blood. You could see it in the way he played against Dallas in that game where he knows he's close to getting the Stanley Cup final. And, if he turns it on enough times in that series and he's just like who he is at that level that only he can get to, I think he's probably the only player on any of the 4 teams that can, in some ways, drag the rest of his team into a Stanley Cup final. And he's got Draisaitl. Obviously, there's some other really good players.
He's playing great. He's playing unbelievable defensively and everything.
But McDavid's at a level where if he's really feeling it and he just decides to go to that like otherworldly place, like he'll be able to get them there.
They're starting to win those hockey games that don't get won by that team 2 years ago. Yeah. They're starting to win those hockey, like the Gretzky Messier Oilers, who would score lights out in the early 80s. But when they won game 2 at New York in 84, 1-0. And it was a 2-3-2 scheme back then for only a few years, but they did it. and they went home. They never looked back. When they can win that kind of game, this was that kind of game.
Yep.
They really Dallas rallied. It got tight, but this is Edmonton. This is they now know how to win without McDavid scoring 2 goals and 3 assists. This is now a scary team. I think Ekholm was a huge key to them fortifying a better structure and identity. The coaching change very obviously brought them another step forward. It could have even worked in reverse. The other guy's a good coach. It could have, it could have gone the other way. But this guy is just, I love the calm that Knobloch shows on the bench. He's amazing. The way he just, the world could be falling apart and he'd just be kind of like, all right, I think I had this on page 3. He's really something. So I'm enjoying watching both of these series right now. And yeah, it's do or die for the Rangers in my mind.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, some interesting nuggets from Elliot Friedman in the 32 Thoughts podcast today. Bruins related. One of them was he talked about that he believes there was a chatter between the Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes at the trade deadline about Linus Ullmark. His quote was, "There was something going on with the Bruins and another Eastern Conference team, a contender, and Ullmark. I do believe the Bruins and Hurricanes talked an Ullmark deal." Which makes sense. Carolina, at that point, Freddie Anderson's status was very much in question. They were going through some other goaltenders, so all of it checks out for sure. And obviously Elliott's not going to throw something like that out there.
Nashas is kind of getting phased out there.
Well, that's my point. Is he said that he couldn't connect it to Nashas in particular. But yes, Natchez is an RFA. It sounds like he's not happy there. It sounds like they're not going to pay him the money that he believes he's worth. He's had some very good offensive seasons in Carolina, former first-round pick, a Czech. So obviously somebody that there may be an interest in bringing to Boston, given that they seem to be cornering the market in Czech NHL players here to play with Pastrnak. So a lot of this stuff makes sense. It'll be interesting to see if that gets revisited in any way, shape, or form. But your thoughts on the talk of it having been a Carolina Bruins deal that was brewing with Ullmark, and Martin Necas potentially coming to Boston, if that's somebody, because Mick, I've watched him a bunch. I watched him in the World Championships the other day when they beat Team USA. He's obviously a very skilled, fast player. Necas, good offensive playmaker, good offensive player. The kind of player you could put with Pastrnak, and it would be really interesting to watch. But is he going to be like a grizzled playoff kind of warrior kind of guy? Is he going to be somebody that is going to win those battles between the dots and down low and win all the 50-50 pucks? I don't know. And in that respect, it's going to be interesting, if that kind of guy does come here. I'm not sure he's exactly what they need as far as a center goes, but he's obviously a very talented player. So it's an interesting scenario.
I'm trying to remember if he's a right or left shot.
Well, I know Chandler Stevenson's, I believe, is a left shot. I don't know. I can't remember if he was right or left either.
Well, okay, so I'm going to bring him up on Hockey Reference, and while we're here, he shoots right. Necas shoots right. His nicknames are Nick and Sugar Boo. Okay. I don't know. Doesn't sound to me like he's going to win all the 50.
Well, I was thinking with this in mind when I watched him in the World Championships the other day, and he's an extremely skilled player, very fast, has a lot of good stick skills, very creative, good offensive player. So he'd be a good fit in a lot of respects. I just don't think he's like Patrice Bergeron, put it that way. You know what I mean? He's not like this center that's going to lock down the other guy, that's going to win all the key faceoffs, that's going to be this physical presence along with being a great two-way center. I don't know if he's that kind of guy.
What'd you think when you watched Vancouver? What'd you think about Lindholm?
I mean, I think Lindholm is a little bit more along the lines of what I would traditionally think that they'd be looking for and what they could use. But I don't. He didn't really stand out to me as, and in the role he was in, as being a guy that was going to come in and turn things around for the Bruins. But I know they really like him, and I think that's a guy they're very much interested in.
Yeah, and you won't get a straight answer in a scrum from Pasta about this, but somebody was saying that he prefers a right-handed center.
Yeah,
So Zach is a left, and who knows if that played a role in what went on with the redeployment of Pavel Zacha as things got heavier and heavier, the
yeah.
lifting. So I'm not sure if that had something to do with it or not, but Matty Poitras are right. So who knows what going forward. That kid's a good player. So we'll see what he's got next year. I don't know. I don't know if you go if they're not going to go for a big fish, I'd rather them get a left shot so that they can have that face-off flexibility in that position. Instead of just getting another right. So maybe that is Stevenson. I don't know. If they're gonna, there's nobody who's superstar level here, but you might get a guy who has got a good hard skills kind of player. Stevenson really elevated for Vegas last year.
When they won the cup, he was great in the playoffs. Yes,
he was great.
Yep.
So, I mean, what you do in the playoffs goes a long way toward establishing value, and when it comes to trades and things like that. And maybe the Vegas is just at a point where they're going to need to redo a few things, and they're obviously at a crossroads with March or so.
Yeah, and that was actually Friedman also addressed some of these other names and said basically that the people that he's talked to had told him that the Bruins are absolutely getting a center this summer. That is going to happen. They're gonna work down the middle. Here's his quote. I expect the Bruins to be in on Elias Lindholm if he hits the market, and you can throw Chandler Stevenson in there. People believe Boston is going to get a center, whether it's Lindholm, Stevenson, or somebody else that we're not talking about. There's a belief they're going to do something down the middle. And I think that makes all the sense in the world. I think they absolutely have to. I think that is a natural read from what you saw in the playoffs, where Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha did a really good job during the regular season of holding down the fort. I think Charlie Coyle has shown at this point with his season last year and the way he played that you could put him in as the number 2 center. I think he could be the number 2 center on the Boston Bruins on a deep Stanley Cup team, on a quality, very good hockey team. But you need what's that?
He's a beast.
Yeah, but you need a number 1 center. You need somebody else that can come in and play with maybe some of your highest skilled players that can produce offense, that can do battle with the Sasha Barkovs of the world, who dominated, I thought, in that second round series for Florida, and really showed you what a frontline center looks like in a deep playoff series. So,
right.
Are Chandler Stevenson, Elias Lindholm, or Martin Necas that guy? I don't know, but
this would be consistent for Don Sweeney to do something like this, because in the case of Matty Poitras, you got a kid there that he might wind up really flourishing and becoming a good NHL regular who stay healthy, got the surgery behind him, very similar to the beginning of Bob Sweeney's career, to go through that and having to button it up and get ready so he can handle the rigors. And so now he comes back, and let's just say he starts going pretty steadily upward. Even so, it's always been Don Sweeney's thing to take a veteran and put him in front of that player like a hurdle. In order to, as part of the process.
Yep.
Development is a competitive part. So I think that would make a lot of sense for him to go get a center. I've heard some other names thrown about here. I'm really concerned about if the Bruins add a defenseman. I heard Brady Shea's name mentioned, and that and I was like, oh gosh, please don't. For the love of God, Bob Ryan, don't sign JD Drew.
What is the fascination with JD Drew?
Yeah, that was hilarious. But I just feel like Brady Shea is a guy who, at the end of the day, is not a top 4 defenseman in the playoffs. when the other team has the puck. And as good as he is when you have it, I feel like you already got Lowry.
Yep.
And, so why would you go and do this? If there's anything you need over there, it's a thumper.
Yes. I agree.
So let's if you don't think Wotherspoon can elevate any more than what he gives you now, then look at your D going into the season, because you're pretty set. And then work on your forward lines is really where the revolution needs to take place.
You getting excited about the Boston Celtics? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the entire band of Celtics players looking like they have what it takes. Even if Porzingis is hurt every once in a while and has to miss a few games, they look like they're going to put a blowtorch through the Eastern Conference and have a lot of exciting games. If you want to get in on the action, go to Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. If you need to check out the website, check out gametime.co to see what it's all about. But there's lowest ticket price guarantees, event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantees, job loss assurance, on-time ticket delivery. Game Time Ticket loves their fans, and they're committed to ensuring you have an outstanding experience with them. So why not go and see what Game Time is all about? You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It's easy to find and buy MLB tickets in addition to the NBA playoffs for every kind of event in the arenas. Views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, all of that stuff. Game Time is an app worth checking out. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download it. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time. No, I think the ideal situation would be is if Wotherspoon, when everybody is healthy, Wotherspoon is your seventh defenseman. And then he's there when somebody gets hurt, and he's there when, and Jim Montgomery's obviously always going to play everybody and mix everybody in. So it's not like he's not going to play if he's in that kind of a role to start the season. But I think you would have what you have now. You would add that big, dirty, mean, nasty defenseman, the guy you're talking about, to the 6, and then that would bump Wotherspoon down to the 7th extra D. And then obviously there's going to be injuries and stuff during the year. But I think that would be the most ideal place to start with our defenseman, is to add one more, like you're talking about. Like I'm talking about.
You certainly don't need to add a right shot. You're all set there with McAvoy, Carlo, and Peak. Has another year, so that's not going anywhere. Left side, Lindholm is obviously a dominant player over there. Lowry is your emerging player over there. But it'd be probably good to get a thumper over there with a left shot who can interchange with Lowry based on the needs of the situation and play up when he's got to have the capability of playing with McAvoy.
Yeah. And, I think you have the cap space to get both of those players, to get the kind of centers that they're talking about, and to get that defenseman. And like, what's probably also going to happen is, like, depending on what happens with Jake DeBrusk, you're going to have to probably shell out some money for a winger that can put the puck in the net as well. That was the other part that I necessarily didn't agree with from the end of season press conference, was Don Sweeney several times talked about needing to add secondary scoring. I honestly think they need to add primary scoring. They need to have another guy that can come in and, be an actual scorer, like somebody that can put the puck in the net, not just somebody that's providing support to the other people that they already have.
Yeah, I think it might be time to stop looking at Brad Marchand in terms of anything aggregate, and just say, look, he's 2 years past double labrum. He's taken on the captaincy. His game looks really great some nights and not so great through other stretches. And it's hard to know where he is physically in the long haul for his career right now. The next playoffs, he'll turn 37 during those playoffs if the Bruins win a round.
Right.
So if that's where this is going, do you really want that to be primary scoring?
Right.
And Pasternak is all world player. But you've got plumbers down the middle, all apologies to the great Charlie Coyle, love him, but he's a hard skills player. And so you're right. They don't have elite skill at center ice until Poitras is actualized. And that's not really fair to think that, or smart to think that that's going to happen next season.
Right.
That's more of a 3-year program. So even if it pans out really well. So fully expecting the center, I can't see I don't see a scenario here where Jake DeBrusk doesn't go to market. And because
Yep.
what do the Bruins say? Well, it takes two to tango. If that's the answer to Jake's disappointment, and Sweeney's publicly willing to say, when he's typically doesn't want to say anything about the negotiations, he has volunteered on a repeated basis about DeBrusk that it's a two-way street, quote unquote. Right. And as long as he's saying that, that he's basically saying what he has to say, because he knows the day's coming where he's going to have to say, hey, look, we tried. We were aggressive with Jake.
Explain to the public why DeBrusk is playing somewhere else.
He's going to market. They can't agree on how serious or how two-way it is. And it's money. That's what it is. He thinks he belongs here. The Bruins say, no, we see you right here. Right. And the twain are not going to meet before he goes to market.
Right. But, and also saying it's a two-way street, that could also mean they gave him an offer and he and his agent laughed at it and said, that's nowhere even close.
Exactly.
And that was it. Yeah. So yeah. So it's not like if that's the scenario, I think that would be DeBrusk and his agent being like, yeah, they're not even taking us seriously. And, that would be the end of it. And it's up to the Bruins to figure that out and to go back to them too, if they really want the player, which I'm sure there's a value. This is exactly what happened with Torrey Krug. They put a value on him. They made an offer at that value. It wasn't close to high enough. And he knew he was going to get more in the market, and he ended up leaving. And, it was not
fourth liners all the time.
Yeah. And there was not a lot of discussion in the last season leading up to that. It was pretty quiet. And I think this is kind of taking on the same sort of tenor and the same pathway as that, and tells you exactly what's going to happen. That's why I thought midway through the season, DeBrusk wasn't coming back, just based on the way things were panning out. Because there's a pattern to these negotiations with Don Sweeney and the Bruins with their own players. And it's very clear whether they're going to stay.
They're going to extend somebody. They do it way before this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, tweet of the week from E. Rivera 33. It's a pipe dream, but Stamkos would look great in a Bruins uniform. Mick, your thoughts?
I love Stamkos. A few years ago, his contract was an albatross, and because everybody thought he was all washed up.
Yep.
Physically, and then he goes and he's like one of their 3 best players 3 years in a row, and all of a sudden all goes quiet on the Stamkos front, and now he's disappointed that nothing's happened over there.
Yep. And they traded for Ryan McDonough, so they don't have a ton of cap space anymore either to sign him.
Yeah, which I think was actually a good bridge move for them, because I think that there's been so much upheaval with the injury to Sergachev. And now Chernak. I think that, you're trying to figure okay, Hedman's got one more year after this. Is he really going to stay?
Yeah.
They got to figure out what they're going to do here. And
I also obviously there was some kind of understanding there, you take our player for a couple of years and then we'll talk about bringing him back somewhere down the line. There was some kind of not, wink, wink sort of thing with Nashville when they traded him there in the first place. Let's stash our player here for a couple of years and then maybe we'll circle back.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I don't know how the heck you can, when that much money involved, I don't know how the heck you can predict that and make it part of a.
Well, if you look at where the other players are age-wise and the contracts and all that stuff, like you're saying with Hedman and everything else, maybe there comes a certain point where maybe it makes sense, for instance, it would seem to me like the Bruins structured Ullmark's contract in a way, and when they signed him, they were thinking in their own minds this last year they might be trading him. You know what I mean? They'd always had that in mind, and I think that's always there with players or with GMs and things like that. Long planning. But bottom line, Stamkos would be an interesting guy if he ends up not going back to the Tampa Bay Lightning for
The
sure.
only thing is, I don't like the idea of them Bruins getting anybody who's in the twilight of his career.
Right.
And given the Stamkos last few years of playing, of erasing the doubts as to his ability to be impactful in the present, I still don't have enough faith that he can be healthy in the long term that would make me want to impress him on July 1st in a competitive way.
Yeah.
When really the Bruins so badly need younger, hungry Lions, who have a little violence in their DNA and fast on the forecheck and can bruise defensemen in a cumulative way over the course of a 7-game series, the way Boston's get targeted, especially McAvoy.
Yep.
This is something that's been notably absent from the Bruins. And every year, I think they're a little closer to being able to establish it. And then it doesn't, and then it's not there in the playoffs. And the opponent's defensemen are just as fresh physically as they were at the beginning of the series. That cannot be the case anymore. And as much as I like Stamkos, the player, if Marchand all of a sudden shocked the world and said, I retire, I'll be all over the Stamkos idea.
Yeah.
But because of where the Bruins are at and what they have to work with, and I feel like they need a few bodies on the forward lines and an infusion of culture that permeates the depth from the top to the bottom of getting on the forecheck and hitting people. And I think they need to identify those players with skill, hard skills, who can really change this hockey team and trend it toward a way that will make them as threatening to the opponents as the opponents have been to them in these last few playoffs years.
Yeah, I think at the bottom line with Stamkos is I think he would be a really interesting fit because of the player he is, because of the leadership, because of everything he provides. But it feels like he would be a luxury to the Bruins, where he's not like the biggest need that they have by far. And he would make sense maybe in other places instead of Boston if he did leave Tampa Bay ultimately and go somewhere else.
Somebody's going to give him more money than the Bruins can afford to in terms of what they need to build here.
Yep.
What the Bruins need to do with their cap space, they don't have enough to nab Stamkos. I could see Stamkos winding up in a place like Pittsburgh, which just seems to get more top heavy every time I look at that team.
But that makes sense in Pittsburgh.
5 Hall of Famers, and then
where he continues to want to get veteran, like established all-star type players to come play with him. That would make a lot of sense for sure. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining us. Let's thank our sponsors real quick. Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll right in. You'd be killing it if you're going with Jaylen Brown right now and points and shots made and everything else. He has been an absolute beast and is outplaying Jason Tatum in the playoffs, and really is like, after the way he played last year in Game 7 when they got eliminated, the Celtics, and I was really down on him. Just to see what the reckless abandon, the aggressiveness he's playing with, and the battles he's winning on the basketball court, in addition to scoring. Like, that's the guy you go with in something like Prize Picks. And I really, I'm getting on board the Jaylen Brown train, watching the way he's playing this year. He's playing like a champion, and he's playing like somebody that wants to win the title this year. But anyway, it's fun and pretty simple to get involved with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Let's also thank the Game Time app, where you can go to get your NBA playoff tickets, last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, views from all seats in the venue. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's a pretty damn good deal. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account at Game Time and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining me, my friend.
Yeah, it was a pleasure every time, Joe.
Absolutely. All right. Everybody have a good, safe, and festive Memorial Day weekend. Remember why the holiday is there in the first place at Memorial Day, but also enjoy the sun and enjoy the extra day off from work, everybody. Take
Thank
care.
a veteran for his service or her service.
That's right. And we'll see you at the rink.